Well, thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to have all of you back with us for another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We start every episode by extending our sincerest gratitude and appreciation to our presenting sponsors. You can see their logos right in front of the screen. And what I like to say is these sponsors, they're not only here to support us in these episodes, but they're really here to support you and the great work you do in the community. So they're here to lift you up. They lean in to support your mission and your cause around the globe. So find them online, give them a like, share some love, and certainly follow them because they do great work and they're here to support your great work. Just as Julia Patrick is CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. So glad that you've asked me to serve alongside Julia. I'm Jarrett Ransom, co-host of the Nonprofit Show, also the Nonprofit Nerd. Julia likes to say that I'm her nonprofit nerd, but I'm also your nonprofit nerd and just the nonprofit nerd. So I can nerd out over this topic, as can Sabrina Hernandez. And boy, do we have a powerhouse with us today. She is dynamic. She is filled with positivity. I had the great fortune of meeting you, Sabrina, through a Facebook forum, and then we actually connected over a virtual call, right? Zoom meeting, of course. But you serve as the president and CEO of your own consulting firm called Supporting World Hope. Welcome to Sabrina.
Thank you. I do serve as a CEO. I've been in the industry, nonprofit industry, for over 25 years, and I actually feel really good based on my experience, but also on my education. I have a nonprofit certification from Harvard Business School, so I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here, and we're really interested in your take on something that is more of an intimate way to build a relationship with donors and get new donors. And that's kind of that house party fundraising aspect where instead of the big ballroom trap that we've all been in, and oh my gosh, we have to have the big event, you have a really interesting spin on this. And so we're really excited to have you share your thoughts. And let's start with, what is friendraising?
So fundraising is really a donor-centered process where you go about creating and building relationships, right, with people. We all hear that people give to people. And so you really just want to create a relationship because we all need friends in time of trouble. So let's just take this pandemic, for example. If you had a data of friends that you could have called on during this pandemic, it really would have been a little bit, I will say, it would have been a little bit less panic for you in that fundraising process. And so fundraising really is a donor-centered process in building those relationships.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was working with a coaching call client 2 days ago, and one of the things that they were talking about was that the number of people that they just said, we're going to just reach out and we're just going to say, how are you doing? We're not going to ask for money. We're not going to ask for them to join an event or to do something. We're just going to be human and say, how are you doing?
And that's what fundraising is about. It really is about cultivating. It is, I always say that fundraising is like dating. You know, you do not go on a first date and ask someone to marry you. That's just kind of, well, some people do, but that's really unheard of, right?
There's reality shows about that now.
Right. There's reality shows about that now. But in the traditional sense of the word, you need to have a courting process. And fundraising and cultivation is all a part of that courting process. Get to know people, pick up the phone, check and see if they're okay. Invite them in for a tour of your facility, things like that. Meet them in their office space. It's really about cultivating those relationships.
I agree with you on that. Now, if you're doing a fundraising event, either IRL in real life, which things are going to start to be picking back up, or online, what does the typical host do? Like, what does that look like?
So I always say kind of identify a host that's passionate about the client, the cause, right? And someone that has the ability to reach out to their circle of people. And depending on what your goal is, if your goal is cultivation, then you're going to reach out to people who don't necessarily support your organization right now. If your goal is to turn this into a fundraising event, of course, you want to reach out to people that you have built that relationship with, because you do not want to go on a first date and ask them for money. I just gonna repeat that. And so who should the host be? Well, I think if you're a little nervous about this process, you reach out to have your current board member, a board member do it. And I would say start with your board chair, because that starts with the leadership and it starts with the top, right? And do your first one or do your first couple. And then after you say, okay, I got this, nerves over, we figured it out, which is a really simple process to figure out. Then I would go to, who are my top donors? Let me reach out to my top donors and see who would be willing to host a friend-raising event. Whether that is virtual or in person, they both translate very well, a virtual or in person. And I can't stress that enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I love that you said, and I preach that same way, Sabrina, that's like, you cannot ask someone on that first date, right, to give, to marry you, to donate to your cause. You know, you're really just, you're building your relationship, you're establishing that. And then there's a process, right? And so I love that you say, okay, let's get clear. Is the purpose of the event to bring new individuals into our organization, to use this as an introduction? Or are we already bringing people that have been introduced, already show some interest, and maybe we do want to make this a fundraising? So just knowing that from the onset, I think is really best practice.
It is a best practice because it kind of drives what your message is going to be during the event. And how you're going to approach the actual timeline when you're doing the presentation.
Yeah.
So as part and parcel of that, and I had to ask you this question because I've done this throughout my life, done events like this, done bigger events, smaller events, everything. What is your strategy for getting invitation responses?
So the strategy for getting invitation responses is follow up, follow up, follow up. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I have learned. I try to keep these friend-raising events very intimate. So no more than 10, 15 people is the goal. So when your goal is 10 to 15 people, you need to almost invite double or triple that, because life happens, you know. People have every intent to attend, whether it's virtual or in person, but something comes up, a meeting that they know they had, or, you know, something happened maybe with their health or with somebody got sick, whatever the reason is, you are covering for, you know, life just happens. And so if I'm going to have 10 people, that's my goal. I want to have 10 people. I'm going to invite 30. And then not only am I going to invite 30, I am going to follow up with them. I get, and I'm sure you guys as well, you get so many invites to attend events, webinars, all kinds of things, right? And you put it on your calendar and you have the intent to do it, and you get busy and you think, God, do I really want to do that? Right? And then you get, but what makes a difference is if I get a phone call, not an email. Okay. An email, you get an email, that's good, that's standard, that's automated. But if I get a phone call and someone takes the time to call me and say, hey, did you get that invite? You're going to be there, right? Then I realize it's important to that person that I show up. It puts a little bit more pressure on me to show up. And so the follow up with a phone call, don't rely on email. Don't rely just on a text. Of course, you have to do the email. You have to do the text. That's what we're used to. But the phone call is the key to get people on a Zoom or in your home.
Yeah, that multi-channel,
Yes.
right, is so important. And I know we've talked about this so often that picking up a phone for some people is literally like picking up a cement cinder block, right? It's like, it is so heavy and I don't want to do that. But it's so necessary, especially because we crave connection. We really crave connection. And I am guilty. I did this the other day, Sabrina, where I actually booked a health appointment on top of my son's lacrosse practice. And I was like, okay, I really cannot be at two places at once. But, really having the ability to cancel, reschedule, I think with that phone call, it also gives them accountability that if something does come up, they're going to tell you as opposed to no show you.
Exactly. And then you know how to plan or adjust or
Right.
what you need to do. But phone calls are very personal, and that is one of the ways to start building a relationship. If I can jump on it, and when I say phone call in this day and age and where we have grown and taken ourselves, I equate almost a phone call it also with a Zoom connect,
Sure,
in many ways. And so if I could just get in front of you and let you know how important this is to me or to our organization, it's going to help build a relationship. I'm putting a face to it or a voice to it. It's a very personal connection.
Great point.
I love that. I love that. And, Jarrett reminds us all the time. She uses that wonderful thing, the ROR, return on relationship, not just the ROI, return on investment, but how are you building that relationship? Because and we've had this discussion so often recently, I would say, Jarrett, about that donor retention crisis. Yes. And that people, they'll give something one time to get you off their back. Right.
Or it's that scratch your back, I'll scratch,
That token gift. That's what I call that. I call that the token gift. Just leave it alone.
Yeah. And that's like so negative for everybody. It's negative for the donor. It's negative for the organization because the cost of bringing in a new donor and then having to start all over. So if you kind of back up and start this way, I think it's so much healthier for everyone, not just the organization. But, I think it's a really important thing to do. Talk to us about what it looks like when you are having an event, whether it be virtual or live. What does that flow look like and timing?
Okay. And so either virtual or live, of course, with virtual, I say you keep it shorter. You don't want people there all the time. No, I say, because I know me, and I think a lot of people might be like me. I say no more, don't get shocked. I say no more than 30, 45 minutes on a virtual. When it's in someone's home, maybe 2 hours, because you physically got in your car, drove somewhere. You don't want to drive somewhere and be like, I came here for 30 minutes. It's just a whole nother conversation. But when you're online, keep it very short. But the format really is the same. The party host does a welcome. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the event. And then you have the CEO or the ED say a little bit about the organization. And then I think the most powerful piece is have a client or someone who benefits from the service do a testimonial and say why they're there and say, this is what the organization has done for me, right? And when you are virtual, you ask then, are there any questions? And then you do your call to action. Whether your call to action is sign up for our email list because you're trying to do friendraising, or whether your call to action is, would you consider a gift in the amount of, and whatever that is. So you have to, again, at the top, know why you're there and why you're hosting these events. If you are doing it in person, of course, you do testimonial, you allow time for people to eat, mingle, you have your wine. It's appetizers and wine. It's nothing, great, unless your donor wants to do something great. So I've been to a fundraising event that was a fish fry. It was the best. The donor was an avid fisher, went out and did a lot of fishing and wanted to hold a house party, and he invited a lot of people. And we followed the same format, but we wound up in their backyard, eating fish and really socializing. So it was wonderful. So you do a little socializing, And you really don't make in the in-person event, if it is for friend raising and cultivating, you don't make a strong pitch. You navigate the room, allow people to ask questions, you answer the questions, you make sure your board members are well informed. Yes, you do need to have board members there. And then you make sure people sign up on the sign-in list, and you let them know that you're going to be reaching out to them. And then you do reach out to them, whether it's virtual or in person. You thank people for their time because they had a choice about where they spent their time. You thank people for their investment because they have a choice about where they invest. Just because you are a nonprofit does not require people to invest in you. And I think sometimes with newer nonprofits, they think that. But people have a choice about where they give their hard-earned dollars. And we have to remember that. And so I feel that the follow-up again, remember, it's like dating. It's the follow-up again. You don't go on 5 or 6 dates and start a relationship and get what you want. Let's just say it like that. And then you don't show up anymore. You don't call me. You don't.
You don't write. You don't text.
Nothing. You just ghost me, right? In today's language. So you got to make sure you follow up and take it even a little bit step further. Have a board member call and say thank you for attending. Thank you for your time. And continue with that relationship.
Now, Sabrina, you have some resources on your website, right? That provide an agenda, or maybe even says, here's the kit, here's the package, here's how you do it to be successful. Is that on your website? Am I recalling correctly?
You are recalling correctly. It's on my website, and it's www.supportingworldhope.com. And it takes away all of the, what do I say? I have the script, the actual email that you can cut and paste to invite, how to select the host. Here's what the host needs to say to get their guests there. Here's the timeline. Make phone calls at this time. What's the agenda when you get there? What am I supposed to say as the CEO? Here's the script. How am I supposed to close this out? Here's the script. You don't have to think, and it's very cost effective. It's $37 because at the end of the day, I really just want people to have this information because it is a game changer. Individual giving is a game changer. And this really is targeted towards individual giving, and it can lead to major gifts. If you just do this, and this is your initial, the initial entryway into your organization, and then you end it with really stewardship and recognition and continuing to build that relationship. You talked about retention. It costs organizations so much money to go out and get new donors than it does to retain the donors that they have. So start with these house parties, right? Get your donors, really steward them, really build those relationships with them. And the goal really is to, have repeat gifts. 1 gift, 2 gifts, 3 gifts, 4 gifts. And then ultimately, I would hope it is to move them up that ladder to wills and bequests. Yes. And it all started with a party.
A party, maybe even a fish fry, right?
Yeah, maybe even a fish fry.
I've done the same. I went to in Charleston, South Carolina. We did oyster roast, and they were so much fun, right? And everyone's like standing around a table, shucking their own oysters. So it doesn't have to be, a formal sit-down dinner. It can be a very casual environment where you bring people into your home, backyard, or, yes, you could. I've seen it also, Sabrina, where maybe somebody will rent out some type of a room in a restaurant. So if you're not the one that wants to have it catered or wants to do the cooking, that's viable as well. But I love the virtual component right now, and I don't see that going away.
Right. I don't see it going away either. And I think people are actually appreciative of it because, time is precious, and we don't all have a lot of time. You just said you had a doctor's appointment and you had something to do with your child. So, I think it's a win-win, especially in the current situation that we're living in.
And you get to cast your net wider, right? Like able to invite people from different geographic locations and not just your, your little bubble of people that live right in your backyard or in your city and town, right? It's like we can expand the people that we are inviting.
It could be worldwide when you're using
Yes.
virtual. It could be literally just who resonates with the mission. Do they have an affinity for the mission, and have you built or starting to build a relationship with them?
Let me ask you this. What do you think in terms of timing? You talked about duration, which I loved your guidance on that. But like a Thursday to Friday night or Saturday morning, or what do you think about having some of these things scheduled?
Well, I think that it really depends. If it's an in-person event, of course, it's based on your community. It's kind of knowing local, what's going on in your community. If it's a virtual event, just some of the best practices that I've seen that, because we schedule things at different times to kind of see what works and what doesn't work. There's not a lot of things going on a Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time.
There will be now.
Right. It will be now, but I've noticed the Thursdays around 6 p.m. Central Time, which would make it 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That time frame, it really seems to resonate with people.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's good advice for anybody who is maybe looking to reach out to some of their alums.
Yes.
To look at if you have that type of a thing, or even to re-engage people that were once part of your donor base, then maybe they've gone off and I like
and
that.
I say if you're struggling with, well, who do I invite? Even if you're a board member that's hosting it, who do I invite? I agree with you. Look at your alumni list. Look at former board members. Look at former donors that you've lost. Look at, all of those little components and come up with your list. Who do you want? If you had an advisory board prior to and they exit out for your advisory board, all of those would be great potentials to invite to something like this, to start re-engaging them.
Absolutely. And it's that return on relationship. And you just want to go deeper and deeper with those relationships and build their trust, right? And see where it goes. And it all started from a party. I love that you said that.
Yeah, it all started with a party. Who doesn't like a good party? That's what I always say. I love myself a good party. And even if you want to enhance your virtual event, because I have done this as well, you can partner with a local restaurant and have everybody be sharing in on a meal during your virtual event, or a dessert, or a glass of wine, or whatever it is. If you partner with a local restaurant, and then people can pick up that item at a certain pickup time and then join you via Zoom at the designated time, you can also enhance the online event like that. And it really does not, I say it does not cost anything if you can get the restaurant to donate, or even have a partnership where it's at a discount. It depends on how, like you said, formal or informal you want your events.
Great ideas. We're always looking for something new and those enhancements.
Yeah,
exactly. Now we are running out of time, which is like, I say this every day, don't I, Jared? It's hard to believe, but you really talked about, follow up with the guests and everything like that. I'm thinking, like, is this the sort of thing that you witness to the group? Now, just to let you know, we're going to be giving you a buzz to find out, what your thoughts are, or so that it's not coming out of left field. And then my second part of the question is the host done at that point, or do you turn this over to staff and they make those calls? What does that kind of look like?
Well, for me, I always ask the host to do the final calls, and just because it's a personal touch. Again, they're the ones who invite it, and then I ask the staff to send a thank you, if that makes sense. So they're getting two touches, right? Because it's all about, again, starting that relationship and building that relationship. And so they're getting those two touches. And yes, when they are signing up on the list or sharing their emails, very clear that we will be communicating with you periodically to let you know about your investment, especially if it is a fundraising event, people want to know the impact of their investment. And so we want you to know that the gift that you gave helped Janie, complete her college education or whatever the mission is. And so we want to make sure that they know about that. And we also let them know we're signing you up for our newsletter so that you stay abreast of our organization.
I had somebody ask me this probably, I don't know, probably like a year or two ago. Well, before the pandemic. And they were doing a Friendraiser and they wanted to try to turn it into a quasi drive. And so they were in shelter services and they wanted to have everybody bring socks because it was a back to school kind of tag in. And one of the people on the committee felt like if they asked that, and it would, a bag of socks that you could get at a big box store or on Amazon, low cost, easy threshold to meet. But one of the comments was they felt like if they had their guests participate in a giving event, that they would have been like, okay, I gave, and that they couldn't transition them into a deeper relationship. And I'd love to get your feedback on that. I thought it was a very interesting question.
I don't know if you can't transition them into a deeper relationship. I would say I wouldn't necessarily ask them to bring socks to the fundraising or friend-raising event, because I would think that they were like, if you make a pitch to me to give, that, hey, I bought you socks already, I'm done.
That's right.
From that point of view, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it long term, so that's one.
Yeah.
But if they still wanted to move forward with that, right, I would then, as the staff person, try to be a little creative, and I would send pictures of people wearing those socks, without shoes perhaps, or, so to say, okay, I have socks, but now I need shoes, and this is how you can help me. So it really depends on how you take that and use that creativity.
I was going to say that too, is how do you build it into the message, right? How do you build that into the need and the case for support so that you can use that to demonstrate, thank you for bringing socks. Every year we distribute X amount of socks to X amount of individuals, right? Here's what that impact does and how, it really makes a difference, as well as Sabrina says, and then what's next, right? And now let's put shoes on their feet.
Let's put shoes on their feet. Or I would put, some wearing socks, like 5 wearing socks and 1 without socks, because there's still people out there without socks,
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Those are the kind of things that you have to think of when you're, moving down this road. And sometimes I always say with board members, I go most of the time, okay, that's really good. And if they were really passionate about wanting to include those socks, then I'm going to work around that and figure out a way to say creatively, okay, I'm not going to argue that point. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to move around, and this is how we're going to do it.
I love it. Wow. I am so jazzed by being able to share some time with you today. It's been really amazing. I want to say thank you to my co-host, Jarrett Ransom. Again, I'm Julia Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, Jarrett Ransom, CEO of the Raven Group, and my personal nonprofit nerd. That's a pretty sweet deal that I get
your
my
back pocket, right? I'm like your back pocket nerd.
Man, I'm very appreciative. Sabrina Hernandez, what a treasure you are. President and CEO of Supporting World Hope. Here's her information. She's got a great website with a lot of resources on it. And I just really love that you make something that can seem daunting very approachable and very natural. And I think, as we all know, the more natural and confident we are with fundraising, the stronger or the easier it is for us to champion, really. And so check out her site. Really, really cool. Another great episode. Thank you to all of our sponsors who are in with us now. Jarrett, almost a year.
Almost a year. We need to find that date. And was called the Corona Chronicles. And then we transitioned this summer to the nonprofit show, brought on so many amazing presenting sponsors and more amazing guests, just like Sabrina. Cannot believe it. It's been a year.
Amazing. It's like, as they say, where's the time flown? but whew, Nelly. Okay. Well, hey, this has been amazing. Tomorrow is going to be our Ask and Answered, our Friday show that we just love. We get a little
Friday
kooky.
show.
Friday. We get a little kooky. We get a little silly. We get a little mean. I probably am the one that gets mean.
Yeah, not me.
Not Jared. He's too nice. But yeah, so check us out, the Ask and Answer show. You have 4 ways to get us your questions: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can email us. You can actually go to the website, thenonprofitshow.com as well. Another wonderful, wonderful time to be together. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And as we end every episode, we always like to remind everyone, stay well so you can do well. We'll see you back here tomorrow.